Hello Year 3, it's lesson 5, which means it's our final reading lesson of week 3, and we're looking at chapter 5, Robin and the Potter. Our learning objective will be to explore the author's use of language to describe a new setting and character. So what I want you to do first is to write down the date at the top of your page or the next space, and then the learning objective, which you can see on the screen here, and then underline both of those. And then you can unpause the video, and then we'll see what happens next in our Robin Hood story. We'll move on in 3, so make sure you pause and you've done that. We'll move on in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, the Robin Hood recap. What do you remember? Well, we haven't met him yet, but what do we know about the Potter of Wentbridge? Do you remember much? Why does Robin want the Potter's help? And finally, a define question. What is a curfew? We looked at that word last time. See if you can remember. Okay, try and write those 3 answers into your book. And then once you've finished and you're ready to check, unpause the video and then I'll show you what I wrote. We'll have a look at what I wrote in 3, 2, 1. So just check that you've got something similar. Right, I'll talk through it. The author is telling us that the Potter is a proud old Saxon man who hates Normans. Remember, the Normans came to England a lot longer after the Saxons, so the Saxons have been there for hundreds of years, and the Normans are new and they've basically taken over. The Potter also likes to drink in the tavern. He is likely to help Robin, and he is a tough man that you should not be on the wrong side of. That's what we know so far, after hearing from Tull, Robin's scout, and also Little John said as well that he had a run-in once with the Potter and got a blow on the head from his staff for trying to rob him with the greenwood toll, if you remember. Robin wants to borrow the Potter's pots, clothes, horse and cart in order to disguise himself and go to the fair in Nottingham. Sounds fun, doesn't it? But it's also probably quite dangerous at this fair, especially if you're Robin Hood and the sheriff is nearby. And a curfew is a rule, meaning people need to be off the streets or at home by a certain time. And if you remember, the Potter of Wentbridge arrived in Nottingham after the curfew time, so the gates to the city were shut. So he had to knock and make sure he could get in, and he wasn't very happy about that. So a curfew is a time when everything shuts down and you shouldn't be out on the streets afterwards. Okay, let's have a look at our vocabulary for today and the words that we'll need to know for today's reading. Our first word is errand. And an errand is a short trip to do something, a short job. Yeah? Bolt hole. A bolt hole is a place of escape that you can hide in. Traders. They're people with a business who buy and sell. Traders. Merchants. Well, they're a type of trader, a merchant, but a merchant buys and sells things that they didn't actually make themselves. So the Potter would have made the pots and all of his plates and containers, so he's a trader, but a merchant will sell things that they didn't make themselves. Straggly. Straggly means scruffy, thin and untidy. Quarters. If you're talking about your quarters, then that's your room. So a quarters or living quarters is a room where someone sleeps and lives. Din. Now a din, if you hear a din, do you remember murmurs the other day? Murmurs was like a low background noise. But a din is loud, continuous noise made by a crowd in a fair, and there's noise everywhere and people asking for things and people doing deals for things in terms of trading in the market. So a din is loud, continuous noise made by a busy crowd. It's a lot louder than murmurs. And finally, a market. The market is a busy area with stalls and things being bought and sold. Okay, so you can see the market in Nottingham because the market is the fair. Right, now let's see what we're going to do with these words. We have our crossword. So, what I would like you to do is see if you can match the words with the clues in the crossword. And once you have found them, I would like you to write down the new words, which are all down the bottom here. And I would like you to write them in your book and then put them with the correct definition. So pause the video now, give that a try, and then once you're finished, unpause the video, and then we'll check to see which word should have been in which boxes. Okay, let's have a go. We'll have a look at the answers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, there we are. So we should have all of those words there in our book, one on each line, with the definition next to it. Got it? Excellent. Okay, let's have a read again today and move on with the story. Turn to page 32. Okay, I'll have to look back at the last page because we're starting off halfway through a sentence. Let's have a look. Ask courteously then, Robin said to Michael. I have no doubt that he will come here with you. He has a true Saxon heart, and, from what Toll says, his hatred of Normans is greater than ever at the moment. Michael and Ralph set off on their errand. Robin turned to Tull and said, Keep a close watch on St. Mary's Abbey, Tull, and bring word to Little John if the patched one moves from his bolt hole. The tiny forest man said nothing, but he placed his hand on his heart and was gone. Chapter 5. Robin and the Potter. The market square at Nottingham began to fill early. Traders who lived in the town were already setting up their stalls as the gates opened. Then they were joined by the country folk and travelling merchants, many of whom had journeyed from far away. One of the first to arrive was a large fat potter with a red face, long straggly hair and a bushy beard. He wore a floppy wide-brimmed hat and a big cloak. Whistling gaily, the potter drove his little cart straight to that part of the square where the steps of the castle came down into the market itself. Most traders avoided this particular spot, for the steps led to the sheriff's living quarters. He was a mean man, and often came into the square to drive a bargain the traders dared not refuse. No such fears seemed to worry the stout potter, for he soon set up his stall right at the foot of the steps. He began loudly calling his wares above the din of the marketplace. A crowd quickly gathered. His pots were good, and the price he asked was so much less than they were worth that he soon only had only a dozen pots left. Suddenly, the great door above him opened, and down the steps came Dame Margaret. Okay. Question time, everybody. We've got 4 questions here. So I want you to give them a try in your book. Okay, we've got a retrieve, an explore, a define, and an infer gem on each one of these questions, which is amazing. So let's try these questions and then answer them as best we can. And then afterwards you can check your answers with mine. And maybe we've got something similar. Let's have a look. Question 1. Which errands has Robin Hood given to his merry men? So I know that he asked Tull to do something and he asked other people to do things. What were they? Who did he ask and what did he ask them? Second question. The author uses the word din to describe the fair. What does this tell you about the setting? Number 3. Richard Malbeat is hiding in the Abbey lodging house. Which words does Robin use to describe his location? So we have to look for words to describe the location of Richard Malbeat. That's our defined question. And finally, why do you think most traders avoided the spot of the market near to the sheriff's quarters. Why do you think they'd have avoided a spot near to the sheriff's quarters? Okay. All right, give those questions a try and pause the video now. And then when you're finished, you can check your answers with mine. So, pause the video. We'll check your answers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, this is what I wrote. And remember, of course, you can go back to the part of the book which tells you the answers to, and just check what you've wrote as your answers with what I have here. So the first one, Michael and Ralph went to find the potter to help with the plan to enter Nottingham Fair. That was their errand. Toll was sent to keep watch over St Mary's Abbey, and if Richard Malbeat moves from there, then he was told that he had to go and tell Little John after that. A din, it's a busy and popular market. That's what it tells us about it. Robin says that Malbeat is using that lodging house as a bolt hole after making his escape. So a bolt hole is a place of safety that he's staying in. And finally, because think about it, a bolt hole, it's like putting a lock on the door after you've gone into somewhere so nobody can come after you. That's the way to think of it. And finally, the author explains that the sheriff was a mean man and often came into the square to drive a bargain that the traders dared not refuse. So they wouldn't get value for money if the sheriff came down there, and he would be mean to them as well. So they always kept away from him when they set up their stall for the day. Okay, what have we got next? We've got an explore challenge. So I'd like you to tell me, how does the author describe the character of the Sheriff of Nottingham? Now, we haven't met him yet there, have we? But we've heard about him. So draw a picture of Robin. This is the other bit. So that first one, how does the author describe the character of Sheriff of Nottingham? What did he say about him? And then secondly, draw a picture of Robin disguised as the potter at the fair. How did the author describe Robin? What was he built like? What was he wearing? See if you can draw a picture and then write a sentence underneath describing what Robin looked like when he was disguised as the potter. Okay, pause the video now to have a go at those. And then we'll move on in 3, 2, 1. Next time we will continue our adventure next week with some more reading. So I would like you to make a list of the different types of people that you might see at the fair or market. There are lots of different people with different jobs in the country. So we know that there are 3 there, traders, merchants or potters. Maybe you've got an idea of some other ones as well that might be there. I would like you also, this is another task that you can do if you have the time. You could even draw a map of the stalls at the fair, and at the bottom of the steps, remember that's where the potter has his stall and he's set up right next to the quarters. So you can draw a map of which different stalls for the different traders and merchants and things that we got there and what they're selling. Okay, another fantastic day of reading. We're going with the story, and Robin, disguised as a potter, is now in the castle grounds in Nottingham. He's so close to the sheriff. Let's see what happens next time on Robin Hood. Well done, everyone. I'll see you for more reading next week.